Hey, hey, wise. Happy self-care Saturday. Hello, hello. How are y'all this Saturday? Listen, I wanted to pop in. This young man is still walking around in the rain. Lord be with him. Because in Georgia, the rain has started, honey. The rain has started coming down. And we don't know what the day is going to bring. But listen, I wanted to jump on real fast. I didn't really have anything that I really put together. But I did want to come on and share this perspective with some of the wise. Especially some of the wives who are in seasons where they are walking into their new era. This message is not necessarily for every wife. I think I have been talking to the ladies like since the end of last year, the beginning of this year, talking to specific ones who this may be for. I've been speaking to certain ones, that we are going into a new era. And really, really just trying to really help wives to understand, like, what does that look like? What does that mean? What is required when you're saying you're going into this new era? And so I kind of want to speak to those wives who has an ear for that. And so on that note, welcome. My name is Coach T. I am a mental health wife coach and marriage consultant. I coach wives who are going through a marital separation and who are married to husbands who are married to husbands that are maybe not necessarily submitted to Christ. These husbands may have bought in addiction, adultery, abandonment, mental and emotional distress into their marital covenant. And these wives are trying to navigate through being obedient to God by, continuing to trust God with their marriages as they continue to seek out their other earthly assignments. All right. And so welcome. Y'all see the title here. Like I said, I don't want to keep you long. I just wanted to just come on and just shed some light in this area. And just kind of share, my perspective. And for, the wife who has the ear to receive this, I pray that she receive this. We are in a season where necessary cuts have to be taken, right? We are in a season where necessary cuts have to be taken. And I always like to shed light on the wives who know that God has called you to a specific place on your journey. For the wives who have heard God specifically. For the wives who know that God has said, look, we got stuff to do. You can't keep on sitting in this. You can't keep on focusing, just on your marriage stuff. I got other stuff for you to be working on. I got other stuff for you to be in tune with. A lot of wives are, on this marital restoration journey, still trying to navigate whether or not they are supposed to even be doing this. A lot of wives are still at a place where they're not really sure if God has called them to this. A lot of wives are like in those beginning stages where they are in complete shock. They are still dealing with the emotional, distress of the breakdown of their marriage and what has happened. A lot of women are still, a lot of wives are still in a position where, they are dealing with that husband, involved with the other woman. But then there are others. There are some who have gotten past that part and they know that, okay, I got to be about my Father's business. I have other stuff that I have to do and I can't keep sitting in this. Even though I have not came out of this yet, even though I am still dealing with this, I have to keep moving on this journey because if I don't, I'm going to miss my shift. All right. I'm going to miss my shift. And so I want to start by sharing with you a vision that God had gave me a couple of nights ago. And I was sharing it with someone and trying to explain to them about this vision, how if you think about an angel, right? Angels floating or whatever. We're not talking about, we talking about the stuff that you see on TV type of thing. And you think about an angel and how an angel is floating. God showed me this vision of him coming in swooping me up, right? And it was like he was swooping me up, but as he was swooping me up and going in a forward direction, I was still pointing backwards and saying, "But wait, like I gotta get this, I gotta get this out." And it was like God was like, "We don't got time for that. Whatever you didn't learn or get in that season, you will have to catch up with it in your new season. Whatever you didn't get back there, whatever you didn't, overcome, whatever you didn't deal with, whatever you didn't confront, we are going to have to keep moving. And the reason we're going to have to keep moving because you're on my time. We're going to have to keep moving because I have a specific time that I have a destination for you to be. And because you are representative of me, and because you are working for me, I don't have time to make my name look a certain type of way because you're not ready to release the things that's behind you. I've given you time to work through those things. I brought things to your attention. I brought things up. But because you have refused to release those things, now I am going to have to come and scoop you up and have my angel bring you over into this new place because we are on a new time frame now, right? We're on a new time frame. And when I woke up from that dream, that vision, it was almost like I heard the song New Wine. Like new wine, how the Bible talks about, you can't pour old skins, you can't put new skins into old wine skins. And so I was like, man, like God, like what does that mean for me? I've been telling y'all that, Coach T been on this journey for the last couple of weeks where I've been in transitioning, where I've been on my, I've been doing my job for 20 years in the medical field that I'm in. And I've been on my one specific job for over 8 years. And I've been in a specific office for like 6 years. And just recently, those things had, transitioned. Where it's like, okay, I put in a transfer. I was no longer at this, at this location. And a lot of different things have taken place since then, right? I thought that, okay, after we treat her, we was going to do this, we was going to do that. God had, said some things had been, prayed over me, prophesied over me. And, it's like, all right, I'm ready. Let's go time. Like, give me a break, but I'm ready to pick back up and, keep it moving. But sometimes in the middle of transitioning, changes have to be made. Cuts have to take place. And this is sometimes one of the hardest things because it's like you come to a place of a crossroad where it's like, the things that you have been doing previously, you are no longer able to do those things. The people that you may have had on this journey with you previously, you may not necessarily have them. The routine and schedule that you have had previously, that might now have to change. And so God takes a time period to prep you and prepare you for those changes. Now, for me, this is just my own personal thing. It wasn't a long time period. Because I feel like God had been prepping me along the way. And so it wasn't a long time period. But I do believe he gives you an opportunity to make the necessary changes and cuts before he has to actually come and do it. And if you are slow in doing these things, because you are on his time schedule, because you are on his time frame, it's almost like, girl, I can't keep waiting for you. So you're going to either do this and come on, or I'm going to have to scoop you up and pull you and bring you on over. And that's kind of like what had happened for me. That's kind of like what had happened. You have to understand when you go into this new era, when you are walking into your new era, you have to understand it's a requirement that you make a cut. Your new era is going to require you to make a cut. It doesn't matter how much you want to maintain and sit in a place. This new era is going to require you to make a cut. It's going to require you to make a cut in some of the things that you have done. It's going to require you to make a cut with some of the people that has been walking with you. It's going to require you to make a cut in your decision making. It's going to require you to make a cut in, you as a person. It is going to require a cut from you. And anybody knows that, a cut, nothing about having a cut is easy. Nothing about, getting cut from anything is easy. But it is a requirement. It is necessary as God continues to move forward. I share with y'all all the time that, My mentor, you know, one of the things that she always, one of the things that she always kind of like bring up to me is like, you know, you got to prepare yourself for what's, you know, what God's taking you next. you got to prepare yourself for what God's taking you next. And one of the things that you're going to have to get used to is you may have to leave behind some of the people that's been with you in that one season. You may have to move on and leave behind as God is preparing you for this new era. You may not can't necessarily take the people with you that you have wanted to take with you. Let me read your comment. It says in the word, he will prune and cut what is not developing fruit. Absolutely. And so I'm like, okay. So we had recently had that conversation where she was like, you know, you're going to have to make, you know, some decisions. You're going to have to prep for this new place, for this new era. You're going to have to move forward. Now, I want to just go back to me sharing with, you know, why it's in the past, how I've, you know, I told y'all, you know, when I was going through my separation with my marriage or whatever, how I went to the church in the beginning, and in the beginning it helped, it worked. God had me doing a lot of things in the beginning. You know, I went to the AA meetings. We had this thing called Celebrate Recovery. I went to like different, you know, the different marriage classes, and all those things was required because God was educating me and, you know, giving me the necessary tools that I need to understand my journey and to understand what, you know, I had to do. I remember this one time or one incident where, you know, in Celebrate Recovery, it was almost like you don't necessarily just come in there and just be like, okay, we're going to talk about this, we're going to talk about this. It was almost like it was moved by the Holy Spirit. It was like if you had something that you wanted to say or share, you would say and share it. We would say thank you for sharing, and then allow the Holy Spirit to move in another person's heart to share whatever they want to share. I remember this one instance where this particular young lady was like, you know, well, I didn't want to say anything, you know, but usually when, you know, it's, you know, it's tugging at you to say something, that's usually the Holy Spirit that's, you know, telling that you need to speak up. And she had spoke up and saying how her husband had been separated for a period of time, how she was living her best life. She was just out here doing whatever. And one day the Lord had, you know, placed in her spirit to start praying for her husband again. As he placed that in her spirit for her to start praying for her husband again, her husband ended up, you know, contacting her. Once her husband contacted her, she was like, okay, God, like, what are you doing? Like, what's up with this? Like, what you want me to do with this? I've been out here living my life, doing whatever. Like, you know, what's up with this? And so her and her husband eventually started talking again, started communicating. And then they was reunited. As they was reunited, one of the things that came up, I guess, through a counseling session, or guess, you know, with them going through a session, one of the things that came up was how his family was such a huge hindrance in their marital relationship. And that session required that husband make a cut from his family. It was something that they had to end up praying about. They had to seek the Lord on, like how you go about cutting yourself from your family. So for a whole year, this husband and his wife had to disconnect themselves from her husband's family because her husband was a hindrance to what God was trying to do in their life, right? I would hear stories like that all the time. I remember being in my marriage session classes at church, and same situation where, you know, you had a husband and wife share, you know, how they have literally had to disconnect themselves from their family because their family has been such a huge, you know, hindrance on their journey. When you think about family, it's almost like anybody want to think about, you know, being disconnected from their family. Like the world we live in, times is already bad, you know, things is already hard. If you have a good family, you know, that you can love on and be there for and be there with, you know, do that. So this is not a video about disconnecting yourself from your family. But there are some times and there are some seasons where you do have to make necessary cuts after you have examined the outcome, you know, of, you know, what's going on. Transparent moment. Coach T has been one of those ones who I tell y'all all the time that I'm a sucker for my family, right? I'm a sucker for my family, and because I'm a sucker for my family, a lot of times I get kind of I get kind of pushed in this place where I'm constantly, you know, pouring and sharing and saying certain things. And so I give a lot of information and share a lot of things, but then sometimes that can be used against me, right? When it's used against me, sometimes it comes off as persecution, right? It comes off as, you know, we concerned about you, or, we worried about you, or, something about you, this and that. And so I'm almost getting, persecuted for being a Christian woman, right? You use God too much, and everything is about God this and God this, and you in these assignments, and you this and you that. And, sometimes you have to give, family grace, because they just don't know what they just don't know, right? They just don't know what they just don't know. And it doesn't matter how much you try to explain to them or say things to them or try to make them understand. They may just not necessarily get it. Well, it had been, times where the Lord has, specifically come to me and said to me, you're going to have to make that cut. You're going to have to stop doing these things. You're going to have to stop doing those things. Again, I don't want to do that. You're talking about family here, right? Like, I don't want to have to disconnect myself. And it's like, you don't understand. If your family is getting in the way of what I'm trying to do in you, you have one or two choices on this. You either make the cut, or I'm going to have to make the cut for you. You make the cut, or I'm going to have to expose some things to you that's probably going to hurt you. You're not going to necessarily like it, but it's a requirement, because you have to understand that you work for me. You have to understand that you are on my team. You have to understand that that you are my vessel. And even your family, you will have to make that necessary cut. All right. So he brought me to Mark chapter 8. I'm just going to pull that up. Mark chapter 8 verses 33, which says, But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciple, he rebuked Peter. Get behind me, Satan, he said. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Y'all know that Peter was one of Jesus' disciples. Y'all know that Peter loved Jesus very much. In the midst of him denying him, in the midst of all things that he had went to, at the end of it all, Peter was Jesus' man, right? He was one of his closest disciples. He was one of the ones that was with him. Jesus was, have him go with him and do things with him the most. But even Jesus recognized in a situation where Peter, because of the love that Peter had for him, and because of, Peter not wanting, certain things to happen to Jesus, even Jesus had to turn to Peter and rebuke him and recognize and say, look, I rebuke you, Satan. You don't recognize what you're doing. You are being a hindrance to me on what God has assigned me to do. You are standing in the middle of what God has assigned me to do. And I can no longer keep going backwards and forth. You trying to prove to you, trying to point out to you, trying to tell you the reason why I'm here. It's either you're going to get on board and you're going to get it, or you're not. But what I cannot do is allow you to hinder me from why the Father sent me here in the first place. What I cannot do is allow you to stop me from going forward to what God is trying to take me next. And a lot of times, and I'm a witness to this. I'm coming over here. I'm coming on as transparent as I can today. I'm a witness to that your family can love you so much, and it's natural. One of the things I always tell my wife clients is, you cannot share your marital information with your family. And the reason you cannot share your marital information with your family, because your family does not necessarily, or will not necessarily understand what you and God had conversations about, or what God is telling you to do. A lot of people would not understand you staying in a broken marriage that seems to not be moving or going anywhere. A lot of people would not understand, why would you stay in a marriage where it seems like a person doesn't care about you, or it seems like a person is living their own life, or it seems like a person and you are, things are not getting better. Or let's go here. It may be like a person, like their motive was never right from the beginning in that marriage. Why would God tell you to stay in something like that? I'm concerned about you. I'm worried about you. I'm worried that something is not right with you. And this is one of the things why I always highlight and say, you can give that information to the wrong person, right? You can give that information, to the wrong person. And giving that information to the wrong person can hinder you on your journey. Giving that person to the wrong person can stop God from doing what it is that he's trying to do in your life. And so there's a thin line when it comes down to family and what you share and what you give to them, right? And so that has been an issue that has come up in my own personal life. And I wanted to come on to just kind of shed some light, with you as well. Naturally, your family wants what's best for you. Naturally, your family wants you to be well. Naturally, your family does not want to see you suffer. They don't want to see you in pain. They don't want to see you hurting. However, and this is why I'm always talking about the marital covenant and people having to be careful about putting their mouth on people's marriages. You don't have to necessarily agree with it. You don't have to agree with a person's choice. You don't have to agree with a person's choice to, if they want to stay, if they want to deal with it, if they want to go through it. You don't have to necessarily agree with it. But the moment you put your mouth on it and you start to project your thoughts, your feelings, and you start to project what you think it should be, and you start to give your own opinion that nobody asked you for, but you start to say all these things, and you start to question things that's none of your business. But they can sometimes feel obligated to do that if you have shared your business with them, right? They can feel obligated to say some things if you have shared your business with them. You have to know that there will come a time when a cut will have to be made. There will come a time when God will give you an opportunity to make the cut on your own, or he will come, like I gave that illustration in the beginning, send his angel to come scoop you up. Even if you're not ready to release, he will come and scoop you up and put you into the next place that you're supposed to be at, because you are now on his timeline. You are now in his time place. Let me read this. I'm kind of dealing with that now with my mom, not pertaining to the marriage, but trying to restore my relationship with my mom. And she still moves improperly. She still is moving improperly after all my efforts. Family is sometimes our biggest hindrance. Okay? Family is sometimes our biggest hindrance, y'all. And I think I shared a video the other day where I said, don't allow people to make you feel inadequate about prioritizing you. When people start to put their projections on you, when people start to say things like, oh, you feeling this way, or I'm looking at you, you look this kind of way, you don't look like you happy. When people do those things and you have told them already how you feel, and they are still trying to project themselves on you, you have to know and understand that lines up with witchcraft. I had a family member just recently ask me, you know so much about witchcraft. Are you involved in it? Are you doing it? That lets me know that spirit that's working in that person, a family member, that lets me know that spirit that's working in that person is not well. That lets me know that spirit that's working in that person is trying to hinder me from what I'm supposed to be doing next. God has already given me the instruction. God has already told me what to do next. God has already petitioned me for what's next for me. And like I think I heard recently a man of God shared, like, you know when you are in the right place because all the warfare comes. But I have not, in all my years of going through what I went through in my marriage, and all my years of, coaching, of counseling, of ministering to people, I have not in all my years ever dealt with a family member attacks like I have in this recent season. I have never in all my years, and it has been one of the next to my marriage. Like I always say, my marriage stuff was hard, y'all. My marriage stuff has been hard. But it's like right there. It's like right there. Because it's like, I thought that you honored me enough. I thought that you seen the God in me enough to know that I'm not playing about what I'm doing here. I'm not playing about what I'm doing here. I am going after God. But when you tell me that I use God as a crutch to cope, or I use God as a crutch as an excuse, or I use God as a crutch to not deal with certain things, that's hurtful. That is hurtful. especially when I thought that we were on a different place and a different level, and or that I didn't even know or recognize that you see me in that way. You see me in that way. And so I share that to say, as you are walking into your new era, as God is leading you into this new place. Before I go to that part, I want to share this. Recently, it's been 3 years, I think it's been about 3 years, where my oldest son and my husband was not communicating. It has been like literally 3 years. They got into an altercation that led them to, not speak. And it had literally been 3 years. Recently, my son was over visiting. My husband was coming home from work. Me, because I don't know, how this gonna go. Me, I'm like, God, what we gonna do here? I'm like, your Popeye's here. Like, because usually they kind of like, pass by each other. Like they don't run into each other. Well, this particular day, they ran into each other. And I almost feel like God was like, you worry too much. You worry too much about what others think. You worry too much about the outcome of things. You got to stop putting that trust in me. When I tell you, out of 3 years, they hadn't communicated, they hadn't talked, they hadn't said anything. And that was just recently, that was a first interaction with each other where they actually communicated and spoke and was genuine with one another and had respect for one another. It was almost like, so that's why I don't let people tell me about what God cannot do. That's why I don't allow people to speak into my life or tell me what God can't do for you on this journey. That this is one of the reasons why I don't allow people to tell me or project on me that, oh, you're using God as a crutch, or you're using God as as your coping mechanism, or people who have not walked through this journey and people who have not been through this, they don't know. And it's like they don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know what they don't know. But what you're not going to do, what you're not going to do is tell me about what my God is not doing. What you're not going to do is tell me that I'm using my... If people do not have God in their life, and if God is not leading them on this journey, they will lose their freaking minds. Wise cannot do this type of journey without God. If they're trying to do it without God, their minds has already been gone. Their minds have already been gone. If you're not consistent with your relationship with Christ, if you're not consistent with meeting with your Father, if you're not consistent in communicating with Him, if you're not consistent, if you're not drawing your strength from Him, if your faith is not in Him and Him alone, and you are dependent on people to help you get through this, people are there as a help. A coach, she's there to help you, to guide you as accountability. A therapist, to coach you, to guide you as accountability. A counselor, to coach you, to guide you as accountability. But God is your source. God is your source. And unless you have walked through this journey, unless you have been through this yourself, you don't get to tell me what my God can and cannot do. You don't get to tell me that oh, I'm a woman, I've been through that, I know what that feels, I know what that feels like. You not happy, you not this. You don't get to tell me when I have seen the evidence of God move mightily in my household. The part I think that angers me the most, and what I really hope that wives take away from this, is people will try to, family. It's not just people. It's family. Family would try to project your past. They put you in this bubble, like, we're all the same. We do the same things. They look at you like you're different from us. You think that I am that desperate or weak or just going along with something. If a person is, and this is why I tell wives all the time, if God has called you to this journey and God has told you to do this, you better know that you know that you know that you know God has told you to do this. Because anything else would be foolish. And so I sometimes take what they say. You look at me, you don't see me as a woman of God. You see me as a foolish person. You don't honor and respect me enough to know that I have more sense than that. You don't honor me or respect me enough to know that a person won't just put up with that. That there has to be something bigger than me in this. That there has to be something much, much bigger than this. It's not just, oh, that's me and my husband. Right? You have to keep people out of your business. You have to keep family out of your marriage. You have to keep family sometimes at a distance. You have to set that healthy boundary for yourself when it comes down to your family, because your family can be your biggest hindrance. And it's one thing for a person on the outside to look at you some kind of way. It's one thing for a person on the outside to look at you like, oh, who you think you is? You so holy, and now you think you this. But when your family does that, that hits differently. That hits differently. When you don't respect me enough and you don't see the God in me, I don't have nothing to prove to you. I don't have anything to prove to you. However, if you don't honor me in that sense, please, for your sake, for your children, keep your mouth off of my marriage. And wives, you're going to have to start saying the same exact thing. Keep your mouth off of people's marriages. However, which way the narrative be, however, which way God do this, I am not going to allow you to stop me from moving forward on my journey based off of what God has told me. I'm not going to allow you to project your stuff on me. Wives, you got to get with the right source when it comes down to you sharing your information. I told you I have a therapist. I have a mentor. And that mentor told me recently, you're going to have to make some cuts. You're going to have to remove some people out of your life. And you're going to be surprised at the ones that God is going to tell you that you're going to have to remove. We are in a place where we are here. We have already arrived. We are in a new era. And you have to know that this assignment is much bigger than your marriage. This assignment is much bigger than your husband. This assignment is much bigger than what's seen on the surface. This assignment is much bigger than that. And so if you allow people to keep you in that place, with their mindsets, with your past, with what you used to be, with who you used to be, don't allow people's blindness, their blindness, to deceive you. Don't allow people's blindness to keep you in a holding cell. Like I said, this message is not for every wife, because every wife is not in this place. Coach T, I've been through hell and back. I've did hard stuff. But I've noticed even after you do the hard stuff, there's some harder stuff down the road to meet you. There's some even harder stuff down the road to meet you. I tell y'all all the time, none of us have arrived. Just because your husband come back home, just because y'all are reconciled back in the home, it does not mean that you have arrived. There are still things and stuff that you have to do. There are still things that God is still working out and working on. Your husband still has his own walk. Your husband still has to do his own thing. I don't come on here to proclaim that everything is perfect. I don't come on here to proclaim that. I've seen the highs and the lows, and I've seen God work. One thing I do stand on wholeheartedly is God is faithful. God is faithful. I've seen what he has done in my husband. I've seen what he has done in my marriage. I've seen the ups and the downs. I've seen how he's brought him around. I've seen the different changes he made recently. I've seen these things. So you cannot allow family to keep you at a standstill place. You have to get busy with moving forward on your journey. And that sometimes means you have to make the necessary cuts. All right? People see the God and the believer for sure. That's why they play that against the believer. Right. It's a game. It's all a game. I know that was hard for you as a wife, not putting no human above your spouse, but that's your child and firstborn. You have to be close to God to stand and trust God. Nothing about this journey is easy. This is a faith journey. And if wives are not leaning on God and they do not have God to help them with this, along with that accountability, you won't make it. But your family, and talking to your family about your marriage, and talking to your family about what God is doing in your life, and talking to your family about your assignment, everybody doesn't get to sit at the table, y'all. Not in this new place. Everybody don't get to come along on this ride. Everybody don't get to know what's going on this part. On this side, there are new rules involved. There are certain boundaries that have to be put in place. And so I just want to encourage you, be mindful about what you share with family. Be mindful. When the Lord said, I'm going to show you an enemy that's closer to you than a friend, and then he revealed to me who that person was, that's one of the hardest things I've had to swallow in this season. But I'm now at a place where I have to release that person. I have to make a necessary cut. I have to put boundaries in place for myself, for what God has me, and for what God is taking me next. And wife, you will have to do the same thing. Be mindful of who you are allowing into your marital covenant. Be mindful of who you are sharing your information with. People gonna think you crazy. People gonna think that you out of pocket. People gonna think, oh, you so immune to these things. You just coping. You just going along with this. People gonna call you. I understand persecution on a whole nother level now. But just as much as I understand persecution, I understand God's grace just as much. And God's grace is sufficient enough for all the naysayers. His grace is sufficient enough for everybody who has something to say. And God is saying, I'm sitting back. I'm watching. Don't think I don't see none of this stuff that's taking place. I'm fully aware of what's going on with you. And I'm going to take care of this. I tell y'all all the time, my Bible verse came from out of Psalms. I would have given up if I would not have believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. I have seen God's goodness in the land of the living. I don't owe nobody anything, no explanation when it comes down to minds. And wife, you better get that same thing about yourself. You don't owe nobody no explanation about what God has told you about your marriage. You don't owe nobody an explanation. Things don't happen overnight. This is not a microwave type of journey. 3 years, my son and my husband didn't speak. And just recently, God opened up the doors for them to have a whole conversation. Get you some business, all right? Make the necessary cuts. Take care of yourselves. Make sure that you are being held accountable. Get the necessary accountability that you need on this journey. I want to encourage you to sign up for your session. Sign up and start doing your work. www.marriagechroniclesbytanika.com. Blessings.